Hello friends, my name is Shayla and today is the first weekly wrap-up that I'm doing on this channel. I'm going to be doing my wrap-ups weekly from now on because I have been reading so much, especially during the pandemic, and I just feel like I want to be able to take a little more time to talk about the titles that I'm reading. Granted, I've already read a ton this month. In the last 6 days, I've not slept very well, and so I've been doing a lot of reading late at night, and yes, so that's neither here nor there. We're not going to talk about the reasons why. Let's go ahead and start things off with the manga, as I only have 3 volumes. So if you're not here for the manga, I will put a timestamp there, but I really hope you guys will stick around because I think I have a lot to say about the particular manga that I'm going to mention. First up, let's talk about Daytime Shooting Star and Volume 8 and the absolute fangirl that I was as I read this. In this one, we finally have the ship that I have been rooting for sailing. Best boy is finally coming into play, and yes. In this one, the biggest thing with this particular volume is Suzume has an opportunity to take a step back and reevaluate the entire situation that she's in the middle of. When she first gets to Tokyo, she's kind of swept up in a lot of things and overwhelmed really quickly, but now she kind of gets to take a beat and step back. She actually goes back to her hometown because her mom is in town. For those of you who don't know, the parents, her dad works out of the country, but the mom came home to do some stuff with the house. And so Suzume spends that time at her house with her mom to kind of regroup and figure out what she wants. Mamura, my boy, steps up, does some great things in this volume. I'm a huge fan of him. I ship him with Suzume so much. My bets are that he wins in the end, and I will ride that ship until it's either sailing forever or dead in the water. Like, that is my ship with this series. I know that a lot of people ship the teacher-student age gap, but that is not me. Even though I love age gaps, y'all know that. But this particular one, the way it's set up, it doesn't make sense for the teacher to be the endgame. It makes sense for Mamura, the adorable teenage boy who blushes around girls, to win. I love him so much. And I highly recommend checking out the series. If you haven't, I absolutely love it. Next up, we have Volume 9 of Snow White with the Red Hair. In this volume, it's, again, all new content. We have moved past the anime, so everything that you'll read from about half of Volume 8 on is new to us who have watched the anime. So in this one, in this arc of the story, it's very heavy with Ryu and Prince Aizana, actually. And so they are in another part of the country doing research in a library, and while they're there, a disease starts to break out. They're not sure where it originates from or how people are getting it. Shirayuki and Ryu are kind of on the job, and Prince Aizana is there kind of undercover. And so he does his best to help them. And I really loved this volume a whole lot. There's a lot of good things that happen in this one. It shows us who Zen trusts. It shows Aizana who Zen trusts. It shows Aizana who Shirayuki trusts. And it shows how competent Ryu is despite his young age to other people in in their country, because, you know, they have always heard about the young court herbalist, and so now he's actually getting some recognition outside of the palace, and it's so good. And as always with this one, the art is just so beautiful. I mean, I can't even with this series. It's so good. And then last but not least for the manga for this week, I did receive an early ARC copy of Fangirl the Manga. I enjoyed Fangirl the book well enough when I read it. It's been a while. And I read the manga because I was curious. I was sitting here thinking, is this truly a money grab? Is this going to be any good? And as I read it, I can't lie, I did enjoy it. I do think you only need to read one or the other. I don't think you need to read the book to understand what's going on in the manga, and I don't think you need the wrong manga to make the book better. So you could read one or the other. So if you have not read Fangirl the novel, but you're interested in how the manga looks, go ahead and go for it. But if you've read the book and you're thinking the manga is going to have anything different, it's definitely not going to. This was pretty much exactly the same, but sadly for me, the thing I felt was lacking is understanding Levi. Feel like a lot of the nuance of Levi and why you love Levi kind of gets swept under the rug because you don't have the opportunity to have the long conversations together quite like you do in a book. And I liked it fine. I gave it 4 stars. So like I said, it stands on its own. You don't need to read the book to enjoy the manga. So if you were ever interested in a girl's freshman year at college who's nerdy and geeky and likes to hide out, check it out. I believe it's based in Kansas or Nebraska. I don't remember. I want to say Nebraska. But kind of, it's either Kansas or Nebraska. I can't remember which. And they're like right next to each other. Like I say, my gut wants to say Nebraska, but it might be Kansas. My brain does not want to come up with that information at this moment. But all in all, I did think the art was very well done. And like I said, if you're interested in the story and you've not experienced the book yet, definitely check out the manga. If you want the detailed, romantic, all the fluffies, then you'll probably want to read the book just because naturally in a book there's going to be more details. So that is it for the manga portion of this video. Let's dive into the books because I've got quite a few. So let's start with some physical ones because I've only got 2 physicals. Most of what I read this week were e-arcs as I kind of had a backlog and I'm trying to play catch up right now. First up is Withstanding the Enemy by T.L. Mart. I did receive this in my reveal book box, so if you have not seen that unboxing, I will leave that linked for you. But this is definitely a dark romance in which we have a captor-captive kind of situation and the bodyguard who wants to rescue her from the captor-captive situation. This is much more nuanced and detailed than I was honestly expecting it to be. I've not ever read this author before, but sometimes when you see something like this, a lot of the nuances aren't really available in the story. And this one really kept me guessing on some of the details until the end, and then others were a little more obvious. So I do think it's well written and well constructed. I really definitely enjoyed our characters. Emma had a trauma in her past that she's not really remembering, and she ends up basically at the will of this guy named Rick. Rick loves her and is trying to protect her in his own way, though it's not the right way, and he has a really bad temper. He's abusive, he's manipulative. I'm not going to sugarcoat Rick for who he is, but I can appreciate the fact that the author made it very clear that Rick did everything in his power to protect Emma. But Rick is not who we want Emma to be with. We want Emma to be with Chance, the undercover cop who is also a bodyguard, who has infiltrated Rick's security and is doing everything in his power to figure out what's going on at the direction of his boss. I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words this morning. But again, I do think it's well constructed. It leaves you on a bugger of a cliffhanger, and I was a little upset when I finished, I can't lie, because it was late at night and I'm like, man, this is an indie pub. I gotta order it. And so I have ordered the sequel. I will most likely read that later this month. But yes, I definitely had a good time with this. The reading experience did have its hard moments, as I was previously in a really toxic, bad relationship. And so some of the interactions with Rick were hard to read for me because they hit too close to home for me, because I saw too much of myself in Emma, too much of my ex in Rick. And so it's not something that everybody's going to enjoy. This is definitely on the darker side of romance. And the amount of manipulation and control that Rick tries to have over Emma is extensive. So if you are sensitive to that kind of content, you will most likely not like this book. But if you like them dark and you like a captor-captive situation, because you kind of have that and then Chance. So it is kind of a love triangle, but we are very much clearly rooting for Chance and not for Rick. Like I say, I did enjoy my reading experience for the most part, but it was kind of hard. So again, just take care of yourself. Don't feel pressured to read something if you have any sort of like domestic abuse, bad relationship, manipulative things going on, because it can be triggering. Meaning, I had to put the book down at points. Let's move on to something fun, shall we? Let's talk about how to love a duke in 10 days. I keep trying to say how to lose a guy in 10 days because obviously the title is a play on that. So in this one, we meet 3 amazing, brilliant red-haired women named the Red Rogues. That's who this series is going to focus on. I love them so much. We'll get to more of that later. But in this one, we're following Alex. And Alex is an academic. She's 30. She's very well educated. She's I believe, what do they call him? Steve. Yeah. What do you call the scientists that dig up bones?
Archaeologist?
Yes, that's what she is. She's an archaeologist. She's absolutely brilliant. Love her a whole lot. This book does open with an attempted sexual assault. It is the headmaster of her school, because we meet these girls in this interaction in high school. But Alex lashes out and ends up killing the guy who was attempting to rape her. An elderly friend of the rogues help them bury this man in the flower garden at the school, and somebody sees them. And so she's been blackmailed for 10 plus years at this point. At the beginning of the actual novel, that was all the prologue. So once the novel starts, Alex is headed to the Redmayne estate. She has been invited to attend an engagement party. While on the way there, on the train, there's a man who has a horse on the train as well, and the horse somehow gets loose. I don't remember the detail very well on that. But she's the one to kind of horse whisper the horse, get the horse to calm down. But, you know, the man, he's scarred and kind of gruff, and she very much is still afraid of men from her previous experience. So she's not flinching from this big giant horse, she's flinching from him. And once she gets to Redmayne Estate, what she finds out is the guy with the horse was not just a groundskeeper at Redmayne Estate. He is the Duke of Redmayne. And his name is Pierce, and Pierce is a man who has lost a lot in life and is doing his best to pick up the pieces and honor his father's wish by calling in an old engagement. This happens to be to one of the Red Rogues, but Alex makes her case and ends up married to Pierce instead. And it's so good, guys. Like, I love this so very much. Kerrigan Byrne is definitely a new favorite author for me, and I really loved the interactions between Pierce and Alex. And we also meet Pierce's brother, and that leads into the next book, which is All Scott and Bothered, featuring the brother and one of the Red Rogues, Cecilia. And I love Cecilia with my whole heart and soul. She's a curvy gal. She loves her sweets. She loves her food. She loves her body. She has her aunt who basically is a notorious owner of a gambling hall. She ends up dead. She ends up murdered. And the gambling hall ends up in Cecilia's lap. So she has to put on airs, be the owner, and protect these women with whatever she can. Because the law, aka her friend's brother-in-law, aka I think he's the Lord Chancellor, or like just down from the Lord Chancellor. He's not the Lord Chancellor, he's like second in line. I forget what that's called. Anyways, he's like on the High Council, Court Council thing. I don't remember the terminology right now. But he is bound and determined to shut down this gambling hell. So when he goes in and he has to fight with Cecilia, not the real Scarlet Lady, he finds himself aroused by their argument. And he's confused because he's not felt aroused in a long time. The 2 times in the recent time he's felt aroused was with the Scarlet Lady and with Cecilia, because he finds her very voluptuous and curvy, and he's very Scottish and very attracted to that. And I really loved how all of this went down. I loved the enemies to lovers banter of these two, and just the whole mystery to who killed her aunt, who's after her, kind of a situation. So the stakes felt a little higher in this one, where the who's blackmailing her was a little more obvious in the previous book. This one was really well architected, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like I say, I'm pretty sure Kerrigan Byrne's a new favorite historical author for me, so if you've not read any Kerrigan Byrne, I recommend starting with How to Love a Duke in 10 Days or The Highwaymen. Those are the beginnings of the 2 series I've read from her. Love them both. Definitely recommend. All right, next up we have The Paris Secret by Natasha Lester. This is a historical, well, it's a dual timeline. We have a modern day and we have a historical setting near World War II, and it's about our modern girl finding out why her grandmother has these original first collection Dior dresses in her closet in this cottage. And so we get to know the grandma in the previous timeline, and then we get to know her in the modern timeline. And it's so well done. I really enjoyed this. I really like this Natasha Lester Paris series. This is the 3rd installment in in this series because we have the Paris seamstress and the Paris orphan, and now we have the Paris secret. And I really liked how this one played out. Solid 4 stars. Definitely enjoyed it. Had a good time. Would recommend checking out the series if you haven't. I don't really have much else to say about this one because I feel like it will spoil too much. But I always love Natasha Lester's writing. It's beautiful. These do tend to be a little bit longer. This one was over 600 pages. Just be prepared for it to be a longer women's fiction with a little bit of romance kind of situation. So yes, definitely check that out. All right, the next 2 kind of go together. They're both from the same series. They are books 2 and 3 in the Trials of Hades series. And it's The Passion of Hades and The Promise of Hades. For spoilery reasons, I'm not going to say too much about these as they are books 2 and 3. But in this, we're basically, Persephone's been put in the modern world with her brain wiped. She works at a coffee shop, and then all of a sudden, Zeus shows up, pulls her back into the underworld to compete in the Hades trials to marry Hades again. The way it all plays out is really and genuinely interesting. The dynamic between Persephone and Hades is a little different than I typically enjoy best, but these are well done. I won't deny that they are. I gave both of these 3.5 stars. I gave the first one 3. I felt like books 2 and 3 were a lot stronger, so I do recommend checking out the series if you like the Hades and Persephone lore, because it might be... The lore is so nuanced within the Hades and Persephone like realm that it might jive better with you than it did with me necessarily. But like I said, it was well written. I read these from KU, so they're available if you have KU for free. And yes, you know me, I love a retelling. After reading Midnight and all the references, or Midnight Sun, and all the references to Hades and Persephone, I really wanted to read a Hades and Persephone retelling. I have a couple others that I want to check out as well. But yeah, that's the series that I ended up trying first, and I ended up enjoying it. All right, next we have one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I absolutely loved it and was thriving, and that is Well Played by Jen DeLuca. In this one, there is a catfishing element to it, so I'm not going to shy away from that. This is not going to be a book for everyone because of that element. But in this one, we're following Stacy from the previous book. We love Stacy, and we're basically a year after the end of Well Met. Stacy is kind of feeling like she's lost her place at the Run Fair in a lot of ways. Things are changing, and she's not necessarily feeling the changes. And she'd been, in the summers, technically hooking up with one of the members of the, I don't remember their names, but it's the kilt band that comes every year. I don't know why, I can't think of their name right now. She had been hooking up with one of the members of the band on and off. And then that summer that we start off in, they didn't hook up at all. He wasn't even really talking to her. And so skip ahead to New Year's Eve that year, and she's a little tipsy and sends a message. She thinks to his personal account, but it's actually to the band account, and basically says, you know what? You suck for not getting back to me, and I really thought we had something, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, she wakes up in the morning and realizes she has a response. And the person who responded to her is not the one she meant the message for. And so from there, it's kind of obvious. So the person who responds to her is Daniel. Daniel is the manager. Daniel is very clear that he has feelings for Stacy, but because she was blinded by his cousin, the band member, she was kind of oblivious to it. And this book's one fault is it takes her a little too long to figure out it's Daniel, not, I don't even remember his name, the other band guy. That would probably be people's biggest complaint about this. Then it's all about her figuring out what she wants out of life, and the guy, Daniel, is actually starting to figure out what he wants out of life and what he has to offer a relationship. The whole discussion and discourse that they have is pretty nice. And I do like the whole writing each other element. I just wish they knew it was each other, because I think it would have been way more fun for them to get to know each other with that being open and honest. But I understand books need a little bit of drama. And this one didn't bother me too much, honestly. I gave it 5 stars. I love it. And I can understand why this wouldn't be a book for everybody, but man, I hope you guys checked it out, especially if you liked Well Met. You'll definitely get to see Simon and Emily, I think is her name. But you get to see the first couple as the part of the book centers around their actual wedding at the fair. So it's cute. It's fun. I really liked it. Next up is another book that was highly anticipated for me this year, and that is Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. This has pretty much every trope that I love. It has single parent romance, enemies to lovers, close proximity, like all of it is so good. I love it so much. We're following, and this is also an age gap I forgot to mention, because she is 30, he is 23. He is caring for his niece. Her mom is kind of flighty, and so he's there to kind of give his niece some stability. She is he's Travis's sister, not Travis's sister. It's Georgie's sister. Yes, Georgie's sister. The uptight one, the interior designer. Her. Then it's the country guy who comes into town. And it's so good. I just love it so much. And I don't want to spoil it. That's the hardest part of doing these wrap-ups, is not spoiling things. She picks up a flip to do on her own. She's trying to hire her own crew, and he volunteers to be part of her crew and leaves the main brother who owns the business to the side. And from there, they get looped into doing a like fixer-upper style reality TV show. So they have to get it all done in 3 weeks. And it's amazing. And I loved it so much. And I highly recommend checking it out. And the niece is absolutely adorable. I love single parent romances. Y'all know this. You know me. So anyways, that's all I'm going to say about Tools of Engagement, other than I did give it 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It may be my favorite in the Hot and Hammered series. 2 more, and then we'll be done here. So next up we have Beauty Tempts the Beast by Lorraine Heath. This historical, it's got elements of Beauty and the Beast, but not truly Beauty and the Beast. But essentially, this is just so cute. I love it so much. I should preface that this is my first Lorraine Heath, even though I think this is the end of the series. But I did receive this arc via NetGalley, and there's so much love about this book. Both of our characters end up having different challenges that they're facing throughout the course of the novel. Thea and Ben go on a journey to find themselves, essentially, through the book. It definitely has the whole Judgment of the Ton feel to it. Thea, is down on her luck. Her father died as a traitor, and so all of their money's gone. Her brothers are trying to figure out what's going on, but she's just working and trying to figure everything out, but she's kind of being targeted. And what happens is Ben ends up kind of taking her under his wing and taking care of her, and he owns like a whorehouse essentially, but he's trying to give these women an opportunity to do something better with their lives and to just do better than what's expected of them and give them a place to land and earn some money in the meantime. And it's so well done. I absolutely loved it. And their interactions were so good. Definitely has a little bit of that cautiousness, enemies to lovers, a little bit, but not fully. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then last but not least is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. And another one that I gave 5 stars to. The plus size rep within Spoiler Alert is absolutely fantastic. I have not read this kind of plus size rep in a very long time. She is very body positive, even though her mother's kind of beat her down for a long time. But she's decided, you know what? I love who I am. I'm going to put myself out there. So this all centers around fandom. I believe it centers around some sort of twist on Greek gods, if I remember the details correctly. But she decides to cosplay her favorite character. In the show, she's not as curvy as she is in the book, but, you know, shows usually change the book, blah, blah, blah. She puts it out there. She puts this cosplay out there on their page for the show, and some people are great because it's a really solid cosplay, and then like a lot of cosplay culture, her size does come into account, and there are threads kind of going off about her size and stuff. And so the actor that plays the love interest of this particular character doesn't like what the show's done to the fandom as well, and gets tagged in these Twitter threads. And so he's like, she's beautiful. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And the dude on Twitter, total douche canoe, he's just like, come on, you can't really feel that way. He's like, no, I think she's gorgeous. And then he tags her and says, will you go on a date with me? And it goes viral. It goes crazy. And it ends up that they do actually go on a date. And when they go on this fan date, she reveals that she writes fanfic for this fandom. He asks for her handle for a specific reason. And when she reveals that, he discovers that they have been online fanfic friends for 2 years. And there is a little bit of that catfish element once again because of that. He doesn't tell her about his account for more obvious reasons this time, because he's an actor and there's like an NDA. Like, he's not supposed to be talking about the show or anything like that, or how he's not happy with the show. And it's really well done, in my opinion. I felt like all of the reactions were realistic for the situation. When they get to kind of the final conflict, it doesn't resolve itself super quickly. Like, they do spend some time apart and they're trying to figure out things. They make changes for themselves, not for each other. It's just so good, guys. Like, I really want everyone to pre-order this one and get it on your lists, because man, I am going to be deep diving Olivia Dade's backlog, because the plus size sex scenes within this novel are just something that I don't see enough of. And I want to see more of it. I want to see so much more of it. So I want you guys to help support this book. We need more books like this, especially as curvy girls, because man, there were moments like reading those sex scenes where I was legit crying, because I was so happy to see on page a relationship that more closely resembles mine than most of the ones I read. Not that I don't enjoy those, but you know, talking about curvy girls in sex scenes is not something that's really done. And the way that Olivia Dade really brings to life what a curvy girl really feels during sex, like, it's so good. I'm definitely going to be diving her backlog, because man, I need it, and I need it all, and I want it now. That is everything for this wrap-up video. It was so long, but I want to be able to give you guys more details in these wrap-ups, which is why I'm splitting them up into weekly. So I hope you guys enjoy. I will see you guys in the next one, and subscribe if you're new, or leave a like if you made it all the way to the end. I'll see you next time. Bye.